What's up, guys? So, it's been a little while, but I wanted to make another video. If you've been following me regularly still, you know that over the last 6 months, rather, I should say, I've been working to become a dog trainer, which entailed a lot of field work and a lot of also research. So I had to dedicate quite a bit of time to doing that. Haven't been able to be as present on here, but as of late, I was really inspired to come back and start doing some more content, particularly because I've dealt with a challenge, I'd rather call it, as opposed to a setback. About a week ago, I'd been working so hard and putting in so much time, especially, for my own purposes and compared to what I'm used to. I was putting in more than 40 hours a week, which prior to this job, I've never worked 40 hours a week solid due to mental health issues and the like. Anyway, so I got to a point where I was getting very much overstressed, and I started to realize I was like, all right, I need to address this. So I had to call my psychiatrist. We made a medication adjustment, and I also had to take some time off. So, this being the case and having some more struggles lately, I wanted to come back, connect with you guys, share some of my experiences, share some of my thoughts on things that have helped me along the way. And as usual, I want to kind of dedicate this episode to a general theme. And the quote that's really been sticking out to me lately is, "It comes from a need, not a desire." That quote is actually from Dragon Ball Z, the anime. And to put this simply for those of you who haven't seen it, the main character is talking to his son, and they're talking about reaching a higher level of skill, fighting skill, martial arts ability, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, point being, he says to his son that in order to get to this level, the means has to be a need, not a desire. So that very much resonated with me in the fact that, how have I made the steps, the leaps and bounds that I have? And I think a lot of it was because certain things became a need. It was no longer just, I want it to be better. It's that if I want X, Y, and Z, if I want to have my own life, if I want to be happier, if I want to feel fulfilled, I need these specific things. Once it's a need and that's something that you want and are kind of thinking about, you're that much more invested. Now, it's not that simple. It's not so basic as to just be like, oh, well, I really, really want that, and I feel that I need that to be fulfilled and to have a good life. There are obviously steps that go into this. For me, it's been a really long journey to where I've gotten to, and I think the biggest thing to remember, and I've said this in so many videos, is it's all about taking small steps, and also not measuring yourself against others. Pretty basic when you hear a lot, especially here on social media, and learning to compare yourself to yourself. What do I mean by that? Instead of sitting there and seeing someone online who has an account that you look up to, whatever it is, whether they're famous or, maybe just have a lot of followers but are still technically your average person. Instead of comparing yourself to that person and be like, oh man, like, they're doing it, I'm not, they're so much better than me, what's wrong with me, beating yourself up, it's not productive. The fact of the matter is, we're all different. We have different capabilities. We figure out things on our own time. We have to work with our own biology, emotions, things that have been kind of built into us from the past, etc., etc. So, as cliche as it sounds, you have to compare where you were to where you are. Small steps, then building forward. So, for example, a big thing that I'm into, and again, if you follow me, you'll know this, is Wim Hof and his breathing method. So Wim Hof is a guy who is very famous for cold exposure, in that he's one of the most impressive things was he ran a half marathon in the Arctic with only shorts, didn't even wear shoes. No hypothermia, no no frostbite. He's able to endure these extreme temperatures. Also, though, his breathing method, moreover, balances your physiology, and it's been shown to have extreme benefits physically. The mental health aspects haven't been able to be, they're being studied, but to quantify something in a scientific study, you have to have X amount of subjects, there has to be a control group. There's a little more variability, but I can say from personal experience, nothing has worked faster and lasted longer than his technique. I really believe that me practicing his technique has enabled me to get to where I am. So be able to work 40 hours or better, to pursue this career that I really love, to be moving towards a life that I find fulfilling and meaningful. So getting back to my main point here, the small step. It could be something where you're terribly depressed, even if you're so depressed to where, you're spending a lot of time in bed, you have no motivation. Your small goal could be, hey, you know what? I'm going to do a 10-minute yoga, 5-minute yoga, a 5-minute meditation. For me, like the Wim Hof thing, you can do one round of Wim Hof. It's 5 minutes. It is a lot of intense breathing. But what I like about it is you feel the difference in just that one 5-minute round. And so there's an immediate difference and there's a lasting difference. That's what I love about it. There are simpler things you can do in that I know, depending upon where you're at, that can be very intimidating. So again, I've been really into that, and it's gotten me more interested in breath work, the breathing aspect of a lot of meditation practices. And also, what's great about today is there's so much information, and we're such a scientifically based society. There is a great deal of scientifically proven research as to how this stuff works. I was watching a seminar the other day on YouTube, and they were talking about a method called box breathing. Box breathing essentially, and from what I understand, I believe it was invented by a Navy SEAL to manage stress, basically. Obviously, you're a Navy SEAL, you're going into some really intense situations. Anyway, they call it box breathing because there's 4 parts to it. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, a box. And the ratio there's an inhale, holding, exhale, holding. So it's a 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 ratio. Mathematically speaking, all that means is if I inhale for 4 seconds, I hold for 4 seconds at the top of the inhale, I exhale for 4 seconds, I hold for 4 seconds at the bottom of the inhale, and repeat. That is a very effective method. I've utilized it before. What was interesting about the seminar I watched is this person, this neuroscientist who was giving this talk, tweaked it a little bit. So instead of it being 4, 4, 4, 4, it was 4 on the inhale, 4 at the top of holding the inhale, then 8 seconds to exhale, so you're doubling it, 4 on holding of the exhale. And again, if you think of it in a ratio manner, you could be doing 3 seconds, 3 seconds, 6 seconds, 3 seconds, or increase it to 6, 6, 12, 6, whatever you want. So again, very easy, doesn't take long to do a few rounds. Interestingly enough, they've proven that obviously deep, relaxive breathing from the diaphragm, your stomach, has been proven to reduce anxiety, helps lower your heart rate, that sort of thing. I'm sure a lot of you out there who've had any kind of therapy have been exposed to this in some way, shape, or form. But what they've found is actually the retentions holding at the top of the inhale and at the bottom of the inhale. And for me, in particular, on the exhale, holding there has really, I noticed the most difference in that. Holding on the top of the inhale is a little bit different. But anyway, what they've found is holding there for, I can't remember the exact scientific reasons, but that really does help to reduce that anxiety. It affects the CO2 levels in your system as well as the oxygen levels. And that has been shown to be more effective than simply deep breathing in and of itself. So I'll take you through one really quick, easy example of that. So this is the box breathing with the increased exhale. So I'm going to count it out as best I can. I'm going to have to use hand signals on the inhales at the very least. So I'm going to inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8, hold for 4, inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8, hold for 4. And I can tell you from just doing that, it really does slow you down. It takes a lot of that anxiety away. So that, again, a very easy, actionable thing to do. I think one of the hardest things for those of us who struggle with any kind of mental health issues is I've always found there to be an imbalance. You're either watching someone who's personal growth advocate, self-help, whatever terminology you want to use, like a Tony Robbins, who's top of his game, doing crazy stuff. He's doing fire walks. If you really watch, he talks about how he's gone into these retreats where it's deep meditation, where I believe he goes into like sensory deprivation tanks, really intense things that are not, you don't do that overnight. The other side of it is if you try to look into, specifically mental health oriented things, there are times when it's far too simplistic. It's a little too easy. I feel like there's a lot of middle ground that's not being covered as much. It's starting to be, I'm seeing more of it, but I feel like there's a lot of, there's lacking in that regard, no doubt. So my intention is to show things that I'm filling in the gaps. I'm not just showing you a self-help book that says something to the effect of list out all the beliefs that you have, generally speaking, about your life. Then label them empowering and disempowering. Then take the disempowering beliefs, reword them to be empowering beliefs. It's a very academic exercise. My easiest example is because I had done this in the past. One belief that I'd really struggled with was I'm not good enough. So the exercise was reframe this or reword this to be positive. Okay, well, I am good enough because people love me. My nieces and nephews love me. I'm a conscientious worker. I get good grades, whatever. However, maybe I know those things intellectually, but do I actually feel them emotionally? I didn't. No way. So again, to me, it was a very academic exercise. If you give me something and say, hey, reword this to be positive, reframe it to be positive, sure, I can do that. Do I feel it? Do I feel the difference? Absolutely not. So my approach to that, because I think beliefs are so integral and foundational in building good mental health, is an exercise in that regard is let's stick with the example of I'm not good enough. So how do we figure this out? How do we counteract this? This involves work. This involves reflection. This might even be something that would be very useful to bring to your therapist and work in that regard if you have access to that kind of help. So if you start with I'm not good enough, to me, you have to get to where did that thought originate? And it takes a lot of thinking and questioning. So it's like, all right, well, where does that come from? So to me, the process was something like this. I'm not good enough because I'm too quiet. I'm awkward in social situations. Well, why does that make you not good enough? Well, because people who are outgoing and friendly and, they're more accepted. People like that better. People don't like people who are depressed. Well, why don't people like people who are depressed? Why is that true? And I had to go back, and there was someone in my life, a family member actually, who had told me when I was really starting to struggle with depression in my early teens that basically the message was, and I remember this part of it specifically, was like, well, cry and you cry alone, smile and the whole world smiles with you. And it went on to be said that people don't like people who are negative and depressed, and they can see your body language. So instead of helping me, all these fears I had, especially with my social anxiety, were being reaffirmed. Like, oh my God, people can see it. They don't like someone who's depressed. Anyway, I digress. Point being, all right, so that's where that came from. People don't like people who are depressed because I was told this at a much earlier age. Is that true? Do I dislike people who are depressed? Absolutely not. Furthermore, do I know someone is actually experiencing depression or anxiety? Typically, we're so caught up with ourselves that no, you don't. All right, I'm disproving it further. So let's continue. So why am I still no good? Well, if you're more outgoing, people notice you more and you're more important. And I don't feel important. Well, why am I not important? So going further back, and I'm going to save a few steps here so I don't make this a 10-hour video. It went back for me, at least, to the place of my parents split up when I was very young. There was a very much strong implication, if not outrightly said to me, that I was more or less meant to choose whose side I was on. And it was always that their emotions were taking precedence over my own. They were more important than me. So what was being communicated to me? I'm not important. If I'm not important, I'm not worthy. I'm no good. So that belief came from a very young child who didn't have the mental faculties to process what was going on. That was my own interpretation. I'm too young to really reason things out, and that's clearly untrue, if that happens to a kid, if that happens to you looking back at it, it's like, well, that's absolutely absurd. That shouldn't be put on a child. That's wrong. Now, at the very least, again, even going through this process and getting to that bottom point, so to speak, that originating point, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden it's gone, but you've started to poke holes in that foundation. It will crumble. The first step is intellectually disproving it. Over time, you start to realize, well, that's not true. I was meant to feel that way. It wasn't my decision. I was too young to understand. What does someone's worth really mean? All these questions, and eventually that falls away, and you realize, well, everyone has basic worth. I mean, you set up your own parameters in terms of how good people are and how they react to things and ethically and et cetera, but you start to realize, all right, well, this is how we change a belief. Again, long process, but that's that really middle ground, and it's very deliberate. I'm explaining a lot, but in my opinion, those are the things that aren't being covered. If I just tell you, what's the most disempowering belief you have about yourself, and you say, oh, well, I'm no good. All right, we'll reframe it. Useless. I need to take you through the process. Anyway, point being, I wanted to make this to let people know you're not alone. There are people out there who are struggling with the same issues. Kind of brings me to another point. This is a good segue into an issue I would have was any struggles I had, I would tend to pathologize them. So what do I mean by pathologize? To me, it became this, oh, well, I'm not able to do this, or I'm doing this because I have depression, or because I have social anxiety, or because I have bipolar disorder, whatever, pick one. And I was able to understand, with the help of my brother, thankfully, I was really struggling. I was like, man, it was actually a situation where I had to switch phone companies, and I was putting it off, and I was like, dude, what's wrong with me? Like, I don't have anything to do, and I'm not doing this. And I was really, really upset and getting really depressed and really hard on myself. And he's like, you're being human. You're being normal. These aren't fun things to do. Nobody wants to do them. People put stuff off. This isn't a part of your mental health issues. This is a part of you being a human being. And he actually said, he's like, I want you to see something. So he brought me in to his room and into his walk-in closet. And he's like, you see all this stuff on the shelf? And it was, a lot of stuff in disarray. He's like, I've been telling myself for at least 2 months that I'm going to fix this. I've had time to do it. Haven't done it. You know why? I'm human. I don't feel like it. And I put it off. So again, normalizing behaviors. That's a big one. So I don't know, guys. This is like a lot of my videos in that there wasn't a script. I just kind of went off and talked. I hope you guys find this to be at least helpful. I hope this resonates with some of you. Please feel free to leave comments, DM me, message me if you're watching this on YouTube, etc. And until later, my friends, be well.